Alright, so this is my round two of this. So, since I did Wolverine by John Buscema, I thought I might as well do Wolverine by Frank Miller, the series that was right before. And the first thing I noticed about this is, man, look at that cover. Absolutely amazing. Um, Frank Miller, great artist. Obviously, Dark Knight Returns. His Daredevil stuff is absolutely amazing, but this was just a great series. It's 19. According to this, it says it was 1987. So I believe Dark Knight Returns comes out in '86. I believe. I could be wrong. Um, so I don't know if this was something that was just being held off and then they were going to release it later. I'm not exactly sure about the timeline, but I feel like this feels like it's before Dark Knight Returns, but I'm not entirely sure. But anyways, so Frank Miller, absolute master. As good as Buscema? No, I don't think so, but he is great. So he gets this character Wolverine, and man, he has, he's got to prove himself, even though he sort of did on Daredevil, but man, absolutely amazing. I love these, by the way. I want to first say that the paper on these old graphic novels are amazing. They have the newsprint look to them, but the pages are thick. They feel great. And the art looks amazing. Man, look at that. Huge fan of Miller. Um, People say his art style's changed, and it's not. It's more simplistic than it used to be, but I dig his art even now. Um, One of my favorites. That that had to have either been traced or something, but that looks amazing. Or it could just be not traced, and man, it just looks great. I love that. So simple. Miller just knows how to. I mean, that room just looks so great. The perspective on that is amazing. That's a great drawing. Look at that. Breaking something. The glass shatters. That lighting is amazing. Lynn Varley, I think, did the colors on this. No Klaus Janson on this one. Yeah, look at that. That's a great drawing. That close up and then his teeth. I mean, great storytelling. Miller knew storytelling or no storytelling. I mean, absolutely amazing. I love that. What a great artist. The way he draws eyes are great. Eventually, at some point, I'm going to go through Sin City. Um, a little stiff there, little stiff there, but it works. I just love how you get these artists who go on to these books like Barry Windsor Smith, Frank Miller, and then they put John Buscema in front of them. I feel like they don't put John Buscema. They didn't put John Buscema on a book until it was successful, and then the two guys who they replace him with probably end up being more successful maybe than he ever was. But I still think he's a better drawer than Miller. Barry Windsor Smith is debatable, but man, look at that. I mean, you need to know how to be dynamic, and he knows how to be dynamic. He's reading those old Kirby comics for sure. But man, he's unbelievable. The one thing I'll never get about Wolverine is he has those claws, but does he ever actually use them? Seems like very rarely. It seems like very rarely, because Marvel is a very interesting company when it comes to that. Absolutely amazing cover. I love the color. I love how the color just, you know, came in beautifully on this paper. I wish they had continued to use this paper on their graphic novels, but now they use that glossy shit. I love the books like these because they transition well into video. Look at all that movement, how dynamic that is. He's coming out of the glass window and that glass is going back. I mean, that bow and arrow, man, very simple. There's not much going on with it, but it works. I mean, those blades look very simple. He's not putting a lot of detail into these things, but It works. He's showing you. He's using a lot of symbolism. He's going, this is a bow and arrow. It's not that dynamic. It doesn't, or it's not that detailed from an artistic standpoint, but it expresses this guy's got a bow and arrow and he's going to shoot it at Wolverine. Those blades, not much going on to them, but they work. Absolutely amazing page. I love that. That's that's great. Look at that. I love that panel. I love the color. I just love everything about this. I'm so happy I picked this up. I'm surprised this was not included in the Essential Wolverine. It really should be. I mean, that bottom of that foot. That is not what the bottom of a foot looks like, but it works. It works. That facial expression, very odd. Underwater. Anytime you do an underwater scene, it's difficult. You can definitely tell that Miller was a fan of Neil Adams and wished that he could draw like Neil Adams. And at times, he drew some great, great stuff. I love that. Look at that panel. He drew some really dynamic stuff. I also love the color choices on this book. It works so well with the paper. That's the thing about these new books that, or these books that come out, you know, these re-releases of these old books. The color just doesn't work on that glossy paper, but man, does it work on here. Absolutely amazing. Drew great faces. Miller drew some amazing faces. I love this cover. I absolutely love this drawing. One of Miller's best, I think, honestly. So he's wrestling this guy. Looks great. Looks very dynamic. Looks believable. The guy looks heavy. It works. There's a lot of weight in that drawing, and it works. You know, that's all you need. Look at him throw him out of that window. Look at him pick him up, toss him through that window. Absolutely amazing. That's the thing, you know, when you just read comics and you don't draw, you notice that these things look awesome, but you don't understand how difficult it is to do something like that. You know, that leg is kicking up because he's just throwing him. Look at that, simple bow and arrows again. Weird leg placement, but it works. It works. Oh man, look at this. Look at that panel. Look at that panel. Look at any of these panels. I love the color in these books. I think that's Lynn Varley doing all that stuff. Super underrated. I love that drawing. That's a great drawing. Man. There's not a lot of Millerisms in this book. It feels like it's his more defined style, you know. He's not drawing like he did in the days of Daredevil. He's not drawing the Dark Knight Returns kind of stuff. He's just kind of keeping it, you know, very conservative and very much like what you would expect, like that comic book style, maybe a Marvel style, Marvel House style, but it works. It absolutely works. Absolutely love this. Very simple, but it works. I mean, it's just, yeah. I'm just blown away by this art. I know I don't have a lot of emotion right now, but I'm just kind of, you know, looking at it in detail. Oh, the hatching, the inking is amazing. I think I don't know. I mean, look at that face. That feels like a Neil Adams face. Man, the colors are striking. The artwork and I mean, this is I feel I hate to be a downer, but I feel like modern day comics just don't look this good. And it's sad. I hate to sound like an old timer because you got to remember I started reading comics in like 2000 and well, I read comics when I was younger, but I really started getting into comics when I was about in like 2004, 2005. And comic books did not look this good then, and they certainly don't look this good now. Um, but I mean, this is people who were reading these comics as they were coming out didn't realize how lucky they were. You know, I mean that panel looks a little boring, but you know, more underwater stuff. And that's the thing about this. Miller does not run out of steam with this series. He keeps going, and it looks just as great as it did from issue one. He's not phoning it in here. Man, it looks amazing. There's definitely like a Japanese Lone Wolf and Cub feel to it. It's like Lone Wolf and Cub if you took Wolverine and put him in it and then added some color. Very reminiscent of Daredevil. And I love it. You can see the color kind of like come out. Hold on, sorry. They kind of come out of the figure, and then it's missing in that piece. But that might have been the color for purposes. But I mean, it's outstretching the figure. But I mean that's traditional coloring, you know. I love these because they really show you what the color would have looked like in the comic. I mean, you see these color. I don't know. That might be somebody who colored over it, but man, absolutely amazing. Wow. And then, of course, you have that final cover. I hope that this is the first comic you've read in a while. I hope you find it on a shelf in a real bookstore somewhere, and it took a chance. I hope a lot of people are picking up comic books for the first time. You see, a lot of people think comic books are just for kids, like Saturday morning cartoons, and many of them are. Many of them are. Though they are usually better drawn and written. That's great, but it's hardly the whole story. Maybe you've never seen a story in your local newspaper or a spot on TV that told you about the new kinds of comics that are coming up. All kinds, many of which have the kind of intense character involvement and sophistication of plot that you would expect from a novel. Maybe you've heard of Marvel's Moonshadow or DC's Watchmen. Comics are growing up, expanding the borders to include the kinds of stories that people any age might enjoy. I hope you've enjoyed Wolverine. Chris and I had a lot of fun working on it. Just remember, if this is your first comic book in a while, that comics is a form for telling stories, versatile and full of promise as any other. As versatile and full of promise as any other. Try another. Frank Miller. Sweet. I wish I knew how to read. But yeah, absolutely amazing. Frank, that's the thing about Frank, is Frank is a comic books, loves comic books. Absolutely loves comic books. So, when you go out and you buy, you know, either an old comic by Miller or whatever, this guy loves comics. I mean, he absolutely adores comics. It's his favorite uh, medium, medium of telling stories or entertainment. So, Yeah, I mean, this book looks amazing, but I wouldn't expect any different from Miller. It's very detailed, it's very fleshed out. It's not as simplistic as some of the Sin City stuff, but he ends up becoming more simplistic, but it works. I mean, he can, it becomes, his comics become more of this and, less of this. But there's still this. So, yeah, huge fan of Miller, huge fan of this. I'm happy that I get to look through this. I mean, these books absolutely. I look at these books for inspiration. I would do this anyways before I start to go draw at the drawing table, but I thought I might as well start making videos so that I can go through these and kind of express my feelings on it. Absolutely amazing. I love this. Man, this is coming towards you. The foreshortening of the legs. Everything is drawn to perfection. I mean, Miller, man, he does not run out of steam at any point in this comic book series. There is nothing that is phoned in here. But Miller's not the type of guy who would phone it in. So, yeah, absolutely amazing. That's Wolverine.